everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to learn how to write a Hello World program in in flutter, such that it's going to run in your Android phone or your Android emulator. The prerequisites for this lesson is that you need to have Android Studio or VS Code installed in your machine, and you have to have your emulator already installed and running. You see, right? So without taking much of your time, I would like you to understand that it's not just about writing the Hello World program in this lesson, but we are going to learn about the DAT and flutter syntax, how we link them together, and the semantics, such that in developing, this is actually a foundation lesson, so that in subsequent development, in subsequent projects we have, we are not going to repeat the principles we learn here. So I'd like you to adjust the speed based on your level and should get right on. So to begin with, to create a project, I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to change my directory to the desktop, so that I'm going to now create my directory, my working directory from on the desktop. I'm going to say flutter create. The project name, I want it to be Hello World. That I was instead to use this Hello World, the capital letter has an issue, so I'm going to just do the very command. I'm going to change this H to a small letter, and it's going to work now. Your internet has to be connected, your machine has to be connected to internet, because these dependencies are being resolved with the internet. Depending on the speed of your internet, that's the duration that it's going to take to get the dependencies in your computer. Now on the desktop, now we have our directory called Hello World, and we have many other files. This is the web for the web version, Mac OS, Linux. These are the libraries where every of our that file is going to be written inside. We have our Android folder, the iOS folder, and we have this is for analysis. We already explained all of this in class lately, but so let us begin. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just open my Android Studio here. I'll click to open my Android Studio. I can close this terminal. For those of us having VS Code, if you open VS Code, you can just drag the folder and drop it. When you drag the folder and drop it inside VS Code, you discover that you will now see the Hello World project that opens here. I can increase the size, the Hello World project, and I'll go to my library folder and I'll see my main.dat file. See, but we're not going to use VS Code, so from here you can run it using your terminal. You can run it using your terminal by typing flutter run and many other things. But I'm going to use Android Studio for this lesson. For those of us on Android Studio, the short way is that I can open my project directory and I open my terminal for my project directory, or you can just say cd change directory desktop/hello world to open the directory, and I'm just going to use the short form studio. If I type studio and put a dot there, it will actually open me my Android Studio. I'm going to trust this project. When I trust this project, it opens. It's taking a lot of time. We have the main.dat file is already open here. All of my project files are at this corner, and I have my library. This is it here. So the first thing is to do is to test my emulator to make sure it's working. So I'm going to click on this device manager, and my phone is connected. Remember, your phone must be on the developer mode, and then you unlock USB debugging, then you connect it. So I've done that already. I'm also running now on my physical device, so you will see my physical device here, and I can change it here now. My name on my phone is SM A165F. So this is my phone here. Let us open the terminal. I can run my project from here, or I can use the terminal, but I prefer I like using my terminal for my project. So I'm going to click on my terminal here, and I'm going to write flutter run. The first time I'm running my project, it has to make everything possible, download the Gradle, and everything required for this project to run is going to take some time the first time. Perfect. Now our program begins to run. This step needs internet connection based on your internet speed. If you have a very fast internet connection, it's going to run really fast. And that is my emulator. My emulator is opened. So let me put it here so that we can zoom it properly. Just connect it back here instead, so we can zoom it properly. And this is our flutter stateless widget. Now, what is a stateless widget? Before you even understand what is a stateless widget, we need to ask ourselves, what is a widget, or what is a state? Remember, a widget is a widget means the app state is immutable, therefore it cannot change. Why a stateful widget? There is a widget that whose state is immutable, therefore the state can actually change. But technically, we have a state is any data that will determine how the user interface is rendered at the demo home page. So presently we have verified that our app is running well because it displays in our emulator so well, and if I click this button, it actually updates the value, meaning our emulator is perfectly working well, so we are good to go. So what we need to do is that in our main.dat file, I'll select everything and then I delete everything for us to start from scratch. So let us begin writing our code in our main.dat file. Every dat file begins with the main function, void main. And we have our run app. Now, this run app is not a dat thing, it's a flutter thing. That is why up here, when you put a run app, it actually imports this package from the flutter packages and on the file Cupertino, but I'll prefer let's use material.dat for now. How to display material? Material.dat, so it tells the machine that it should import the material.dat file from the flutter package. And now this flutter package, now anything that does not have to do with that, with the dat language, you have to put it in this file called the popspec.yaml file. So enter the popspec.yaml file. Under dependencies, we discover that we have imported the flutter package, and it's actually the flutter xdk package that I've installed. So it permits us that in our project we can be able to use data or packages from flutter. And in flutter, we want this particular material.dat, every package that is under the material.dat file to be used in this project. So when you put the run app, since it's a flutter thing, this import is imported automatically. But now when I hover over the run app, I discover that I see the definition of the run app. I discover that it takes an argument, and that argument has to be a widget. But now, what is a widget? We don't know what is a widget. Basically, a widget is the building block for the user interface, you see, right? So it tells us that it needs a widget inside this bracket here from the definition. So to see more about the definition in the flutter, seeing this run app was proposed and defined by flutter, I'll press Ctrl and I'll click the run app, and I discover that the function in the function called run app is a function. It takes an argument called a widget, and we don't know what is a widget. You see, Now if I press Control and I click on widget, I see the definition again of widget, and we see that widget is an abstract class. So it's an abstract class, and therefore when it's an abstract class, it needs to be instantiated. We're going to come into that. So I'll go back to my main.dat file, and now there are many kind of widgets, so I'm going to use the text widget because I want to display the text hello world. Put hello world, and if I come to the end here, it tells me it expected a semicolon at the end, so I'm going to put my semicolon there, and I'll come here and I'll run it as a flutter run. On my terminal I put flutter run to see what happens. Our project now is being built and it is installing in our emulator. And it has to run. It runs now in our emulator here, and we will see that there's an error. Oh boy, and see the error. This is a runtime error, and the error is about no directionality widget. So it already tells us the error. So why is it showing us no directionality? It shows us no directionality because it does not know. This is the whole screen. The Flutter does not know where to put the text hello world on this screen, so it needs a particular direction. So I'm going to click at this end, I'll put a comma, and I'll just put the text direction. I'll put text direction, and we need to see the definition of text direction. When I hover over it, it tells us that type text direction. So, but I don't have much information about text direction here. So I'm seeing a capital T and a small t here, which are totally different things. And I'm coming here to see LTR. What's the meaning of LTR? So I'll come here, I'll press Control, click on the text direction, and it takes me to the definition in the Flutter code, and I see text direction. Very important note, never ever edit something in the Flutter code. If you edit something there, sometimes you're not able to correct it, and you will need to reinstall your Android Studio back before you'll be able to work. So it tells us that the type is a text direction. So I'll press again Control, and I'll click on this text direction to see the definition of the text that direction, and I'll come to this text direction that's a big T, because I want to properly know what the text direction is. And here already is telling us that text direction is an enum. So I was doing this. I'll click on Control and click here. I was doing this to verify if this text direction is a class or is something else. If it's a class, therefore I can define my own values. I can create new values and instantiate. But since it is not a class, it's an enum, and enum has a specific number of size. It has a size, you see, right? And in this case, so we cannot add new values when it is an enum. We have to use what was already defined by Flutter during the development. So it has two text directions. It has right to left and left to right. So we have these three comments, these three backslashes. These three backslashes is what is called documentation comment. It helps us to be able to explain code. For example, if I hover over text direction, this is it now tells me the definition of this text direction. Now all of this happened because of this documentation comment. So these documentation comments here enable that when you hover over something, you should be able to see the definition of it. You see, like if I come here and I come to this text box, if I hover over text box, it tells me this is a definition. Why? Because it was kept in that documentation comment, the three backslashes. So it's an enum, and the two possible values are right to left and left to right. So I'll go back to my main.dat. After this text direction, I'll put now the variable again, text direction. text direction, and I'll put a period, and now the possible values there are left to right and right to left. So I'm going to select right to left, and if I come here and I perform a hot reload, I just press arrow on the terminal as the program is running. The output does not change. Hot reload is a feature added by Flutter so that during development, when you add a new feature or add new code, when you update your code, you don't need to restart your app you don't need to rerun your app from scratch. You can just perform a hot reload and it updates your project with the new code you just recently added. So if I click on click on the terminal, if I right arrow, it performs a hot reload, but nothing changes in our output here because this is not a small function. To change the direction of the text is a very big function, so we have to restart our app. So I'll click on my terminal, Control C, and I will flutter run again. I'll do flutter run again because that was a big function, so that we can actually see what happened there. It now has to start installing our package in our emulator for us to see if the update was taken into effect or if the error is still there. Now it runs here. Hopefully it has to work now. It works. Now we don't have any runtime error anywhere again. Now we see it is displayed here, hello world, right on the screen. So it displays from left to right. So if I come here and I put now arrow that's right to left, and I perform a hot reload in my terminal, let us see. Nothing changes because it is a big effect. It's something big. Maybe I can put on exclamation marks here, and then I can restart it again, flutter run, to see if it actually goes now from right to left. Now it is installing. Hopefully our updates have been taken in effect, and now we see hello world, and it displays now from right to left. So my code is just scattered on my screen here. So to align this thing properly, I just press Ctrl Alt and L. It actually changes, it aligns it now properly in such a way that it makes much sense now. Perfect. So our app runs well now, and let us go a step further so that we can adjust this to look more real and more mature. So let us go a step further. In real life, bigger apps don't just show user interface. I don't mean the back-end related things like databases or servers. I mean stuff like navigation, that is moving from one page to another, e.g. on Facebook. Now to implement all of these, we need to use something called the Material app or the Cupertino app. We have the Material app or the Cupertino app. We need the Material app or the Cupertino app. But before we even go into this, let us see how this Google page works. Go to google.com here. Now notice that on the Google homepage, this is how apps look like. We have something, it's not just about text like we have in our code here. It's not just about the text widget, you know. We have more to the text widget, like we have a place for Gmail, images, and this other stuff here. We have a profile, we have the Google logo, we have two buttons here, and we have this, and we have two footers and all of that, and this is in the center. So this is how real apps look like. So to implement all of this, we need to make sure that our app is broken down into smaller components. If you're used to this other programming language called React, you'll discover that a widget in React, they call it a component. So we need to break down these components or widget into smaller components so that many engineers can work together on the same project at the same time. It's possible to put all of the widgets in one function here, but really it's not really professional we can put all of the widgets in one function here, but it's not really professional. So in order to boost our productivity and to enable multiple programmers to work on our project at the same time, we would we'll have to break this project into smaller parts, smaller classes. This will not change our output, but really it will increase our productivity. To break this, to put it in smaller widget, we'll have to now create a new class. Notice that it will not change. We'll create a new class and we will call that class my app, and it extends or behave. For example, first of all, how we have three kinds of states. The first one we have is called stateless. Widgets, and then the next one we have, number 2, we have stateful widget, and then the last one we have inherited widgets. We have stateless, stateful, and inherited widgets. But for the sake of our course, we will focus mostly on the stateless and the stateful widget, because these are the widgets that have to do with the user interface. So I'm going to cancel this inherited widget. Now we know what is a state. The state is any data that will determine how our user interface should be rendered or behave. Like in our counter app, this 5 years is a state, but this state changes when I click the plus. So because the state changes when I click the plus, it is what is called a stateful widget. A stateful widget means the state is mutable, therefore the state can change. Why? A stateless widget means that the state cannot change. For example, this text here is a stateless widget. Why? Because now the text here does not change. You have pushed this button this number of times, so that state is immutable. That is why it is a stateless widget. So you need to know about the stateless widget and the stateful widget. Now notice that when I extend my app class, because this is a new class we are creating, that it's our custom class, when I extend this my app class with the stateless widget, it gives an error. This is red. So we can go to the definition of this stateless widget, and we'll discover that this stateless widget is an abstract class. And we need to know that whenever we're to extend a widget with whenever extend a stateless widget, we need to overwrite the function and redefine its implementation. You see, we have to overwrite its function and then redefine its implementation here. That's why when we came here, when we hovered over this error, it told us that it's missing the concurrent implementation of stateless widget.build. And as we came to this definition of this, we have something here called, if we go to the protected, it was missing this implementation here. You have widget build, and then you have the context build context. So I can copy all of this, and I come to my main.dat inside here, and I paste it. Now, so notice that we have to overwrite it because it's an abstract class. If I come here, overwrite, and we copied and pasted this function. Because this widget is a function, we have to instantiate it, or we have to define it. And because it's a function, we have to define it. And notice that it returns, the function build returns a widget. So I have to come here and I'll put return. It has to return a widget. Which widget now? We can now copy this our text widget. We can now copy this our text widget here. Copy. And then I come and paste it here. Let us return this our widget here, and then I'll cancel this and I'll put but a semicolon here. You see, right? So now we have created a new class called my app, and we extended it using the stateless widget. We have overridden it because it was an abstract data, it was an abstract class, and we put the build context. Now we are returning the text because this function returns a widget, so we need to put what it returns, this text, and we just copied what we had here and put. So in the place of this now, I will delete all of this now in run app, and I will now put my app inside. I will now call this my app. I'll call this my app, and I'll put this brackets there because we have to instantiate it. It is a function. You see now, so we have returned the text widget here. Now we're seeing a warning here, and if we go to the warning, we see constructors for public widgets should have a name key parameter. So they are saying it needs a key. Now abstract classes use keys for their constructors. Now the question is, where do we get the key? We will get the key from us. We are the ones who provide the key because we are the one that extended the my app class as a stateless widget. So if we go to the definition of the stateless widget, we discover that it needs something here called a key, a super.key. So I'm going to copy all of this, and I'll go to my main.dat, and I come here and I paste. Now what we need to change now, this stateless widget, this const stateless widget, to the name of our function my app, and now we discover that warning actually disappears. It disappears now because the next is that because we are working with main engineers, if we want to work with main engineers, my app has to follow some particular guidelines for simplicity. Like if there are engineers around, yes, you see, working with main engineers, when you work with main engineers, your app has to follow a particular pattern or some particular guidelines for simplicity. So the developers of this Android Studio and Flutter, they came up with two designs that are general, they are conventional. There are many more designs, but there are two conventional ones that we are going to use as guidelines. One design which was developed by Android, it is called the material. This is what we wrote here. I'm just going to copy this comment. I'll put here. One was developed by Android, which is the material app. It was developed by this design. This design system was developed by Android, and then we have the Cupertino design, and this Cupertino design was developed by Apple. Perfect. Now, how can we, the question now is, how do we make sure my app adds either the material design or the Cupertino? So you know that if we were to use the Cupertino design, we just come here, we can come and add a new import, and then we put package, and then we can put flutter backslash, we can put Cupertino, something like that, to use the Cupertino design template. But now how do we ensure that our app adds the material design? For our app to add the material design, we need to come here. I need to delete this text widget, or let me just cut the text widget, and let me undo it. Let me cut it properly with the T. I'll cut this text widget, and he has to now return a material. He has to return a material app like this. And if you're returning a material app, therefore you needed to add this material to that package up. Now we are seeing an underline here. This underline here, it means the import this is unnecessary because all of the used elements are also provided by the import package. So it's telling us that we really don't need these things, this particular package of Cupertino so far, because all the things we are using here require the material of that app, which we have already put. So that's why it tells us that it is unnecessary. So let us return now a material. Let us return this material app here. So I can run this flutter run. Let me run it and you see the difference in the output. See the difference in the output when we return a material app. Now notice that when we return a material app, the screen is just blank. We just have a blank screen, you see, with the debug banner. This is the debug banner here. I'll show you how to remove the debug banner. You just have to put false there and it's going to return. So it shows just a black screen with the debug banner when you return a material app. Why? Because we did not put any text inside the material app. So what we need to do is put a text widget here. But now, what is the material app? Now, if we hover over this material app, we'll see a bunch of things that we can now add to our app thanks to the material app. So because of this material app, we can add now many things: navigation buttons, we can add the home, we can add the route, and many other things. We can add themes. So without the material app, we cannot add navigation, we cannot add the home, we cannot add themes, we cannot even add color and many other things. You see, right? So the material app makes the material app opens us to a whole lot of other features that can make our app more beautiful and more classic. So if you're already getting confused, what you just need to know is that the material app allows us to add a bunch of things that just a text widget cannot do. Just a text widget cannot do. And we have seen the navigation, we have seen home, we have seen the theme. You see, right? So for us to display a text here in this our output, we can come now and then notice that if we hover over here, we can see one property of the material app called home. So we will come inside here. I will now type home. If I type home and I want it to return my text, so I'm going to put my text, or I believe I copied it, so I'll just put paste. So I'll just say let's return the text. So return material app, and then the material tab, one property of the material app was the home. So in the home, let us put this text inside. And if we put the text inside, this directionality really will not be necessary because the material app already has some default properties that are already implemented in the code, like in the flutter source code. So if I come here, I can hot reload this app. If I hot reload the app, you see the output now, right? It now just gives us, go back here, the output is hello world with in red and a yellow on the line, you see. But this is not conventional, this is not nice, but somehow this is the default theme of the material app. So we have to make the text look proper, more accurate, and so we have to add more features into the material app so that we can actually be able to center this text. Maybe we can even change the size and many other kind of things. So to do that, we need, so this present theme is here because if we check the source code for the material app as we have done previously, we will discover that the material app already has its inbuilt properties here. And if we go to home and we click on home already has its inbuilt properties that the app is just relaying back to us. It already has its color and it has its theme, and you may be asking that, but do I need to understand all of these things in order to build an app? No, you don't need to understand them. As a matter of fact, me, I don't understand everything here, you see, right? But just trust me, just stick with me and you're going to get it, see? So how do we make this app look more beautiful? To make this app look more beautiful, we need to wrap our text in something called a scaffold. We need to wrap our text in something called a scaffold. So here we will cut this text back, and the home we will put here scaffold. We'll put a scaffold, and if we check the properties of a scaffold, we will discover that scaffold has its own properties. Scaffolds have keys, they have up bars, they have a body, you see, right? So they have buttons and many other things. So if I want to add an app bar to my app, I'll need a scaffold. If I want to add buttons, I'll need a scaffold. So these are the possible options that we benefit from as a result of using a scaffold. And it's in this scaffold where we can actually turn off this banner here or put it on. So we have to put the scaffold in the material app, and if we go to the properties, one of the properties of the scaffold is that it has a body. So I'll come here inside my scaffold, one property that was called body, and in the body I want to put my text. See, no, I copied it already, so I just paste it here. It has, our text is there, and so we have the material app. In the material app of the scaffold we have the text, and we can reload it. If we perform a hot reload, now it becomes white. You see the scaffold is white, the scaffold is on the material app, but now our hello world now has gone back to its original font and is still up. So how do we make this thing to come to the center? Therefore we need to add a new widget called center. Let me undo this stuff, get away with this text widget, and then I can come here, put center, and if I go to the properties, if I hover over center, you see the center has a child. One of the properties is of the center has a child. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to put here child, and now here I can now confidently put my text widget. Now if I put my text widget, I discover now the text is in center, and center is in the scaffold, and the scaffold is in the material app, and the material app is in this build function. And if I hot reload it, finally you can clearly see that our app now is now nicely positioned in the middle of our screen. So it now tells us hello world. Perfect. So in summary, what we can see is that if I open LibreOffice, in summary, what we have seen so far is that the material app, you can use this for the material app. The material app is like our playground. Let's reduce the size here. The material app is our playground, and in this material app we have our material. All of this box is the material app, and the material app we have, say, material app. And in our material app we have navigation, we have localization, and then we have internationalization, and we have the theming. So all of these features are possible because we can use the material app. Now the next thing is that our scaffold. So all of these are features of our material app. Now we can have a scaffold. A scaffold is here. We can put a scaffold. One app cannot have more than one material app, but it can have many scaffolds. The scaffolds can be as many as possible. What's happening here? Where a scaffold basically it can have a header here, and then it can have a body here, and it can have scaffold here, can also have the same thing, like a body, a header, a body, and a footer. So all of this, the material app, and then these are possibilities that we can benefit as a result of the material app. And then we have our scaffold. We can have more than one scaffold in a material app, and that is that. So the next important feature we are seeing here is this concept of the widget tree. We now have something called a widget tree, where it begins with the material app, the scaffold, and then we have the center and the text widget, all like a tree. So we can come like it to illustrate this. To illustrate this, we can have now our widget tree. Can have, that's for the material app, and then you can use this for the scaffold, and then we can use this for the center, and we can use this for our text widget, where you come like this. You can have something permit my drawing. This is just an illustration for it is what's called a widget tree. It's a widget tree where you can have material app. You have a material app here. Here we have our scaffold. And here we have our center widget, and then here we have our text widget. Perfect. So this is what is called a widget tree. You see, if you rotate this upside down, reverse, discover that it will begin with the text, the center, the scaffold, and the material. So this is what is called a widget tree, and it's exactly what we have here: our material app, our scaffold. See. We have our material app, scaffold, center, and text, all like this. Now, to ensure that our widget tree remains small, so that programmers can easily understand and contribute to the development, we can add a new file in our library, and we can add a new file. We can just do it back. I click on this library, right click on the library, go to new. I can just add a .dat file. The .dat file name, I want to name it hello world. You know the naming convention, hello world. I'm going to put material app, material underscore page. Perfect. So we have the name of the file is hello world material underscore page dot dat, and then call hello world underscore material underscore page, and we extends stateless widget, and then let us return a material up here. Let's return a material up there instead of a Cupertino app. Then we need to instantiate this, and we know that the first thing is that we need to, since an abstract class, we need to override. We need to override, and we need to put our build function widget build, and then inside here we'll put our build context, and we'll put our context, and we have to instantiate our build context. Here it returns a widget, so we have to return something, and notice that we have to put our key, like so we have to put our const, and then we'll put hello world pages, and then we put our key super.key, you can give a space here, widget context widget undefined. So we come here, and then we copy our scaffold, cut it, our scaffold right it to where it ends. We come here, we can return our scaffold here, then we end it, the scaffold ends there, something. Then we come here, and we put we now link this by putting, so we come here, we see a warning. So let me rename this well. Then we can use the camel case. Let me just use that. Perfect. You can use, because it actually tells us to use the camel case. hello world. Perfect. This is a camel case. Let me remove all of this. And then I remove this. Hello, that's home page. Perfect. The warning goes away. Then I can now copy this class, copy, and I come to my main.dat file. Then I put it here and I instantiate it since it's a function. And here I put my comma. Where's this one from? This is, I close this here. Thing here, and then I come here now. I see widget, this. The text widget close here. The center widget close here. We have our scaffold. And then where does this one? An issue here. Our scaffold isn't close. This is text center. The widget missing there. Come here closely. Scaffold. So we have an error here. It's because we are putting the widget in a small w, so it's confused if it's a custom widget or it is a default widget. So I have my new file and I've made the widget tree shorter. And which error am I seeing here? Isn't defined in my app. So on this error here, the error is that the name hello world is in a class. So if I come here, the build context is capitalized. I need to put a small c there, and then what's the next thing? We are still seeing this error here. The hello world is using a class. Means we need to add an import. So let me just paste what I have. We need to add this one line import there to import the hello world material page.dat file. So that is fine, and I can delete these comments to make my work look neat. And I should be able to run my app and it should be good and fine. The output is good and fine, perfect. And I promise that I'm going to remove this debug banner. Let me remove it. To remove the debug banner, I need to come to this material app and I come the debug show check banner and I return false. If I return false and I hold reload, the debug banner goes. So that's that for today. I hope you learned something from this lesson. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to see you in the next lesson.